Who would like to start? Go on, Matt. You've got problems.
I'll go. No, it's
Come on.
okay. So for everyone, I'm Matt. Work for a business called Elliot Charles. Is one of the owners. We're a small boutique consultancy operating in produce and controlled environment internationally, but mainly across continental Northern Europe, North America, and South America as well. Yeah, I think it's for me, it was interesting coming into this, sort of considering what the challenge is, and I think it's more the remembering of what's sort of critical in this job is getting the stuff that we were taught way back when, and Josh knows because he trained me 13 years ago, whatever. The real basic principles of the job. It's very, we work on about 75% retention. And it's interesting when, your network of clients, maybe, let's say things get a little bit slower. We had challenges out in North America, obviously with the tariffs. UK's consolidating from a retailer perspective, retailers working with a much smaller supplier base. You still need to continue to fill that bath up, as Tom Fox used to say. And just remembering those basics really well. And I was interested to hear from everybody, what is the business development plan when you're busy with existing customers? Where do you fit it in, and what's the structure that you stick to? Because this sort of panic, okay, I've not done anything, so I'll just blast an e-shot out and maybe make a few calls to old clients. That's, from my perspective, probably not enough. So what structures are people putting in to manage that and continue that sort of flow of new business as well?
Yeah, good question. Thanks for sharing that with us. With Alex joining, I know how I know he's a stickler for putting things in place in advance. So if you'd like maybe to add a couple of things there, Alex.
I think it depends on the size of the business. Well, it depends on your appetite for the business, and it depends what you want to do. You've got multiple options. One, hire somebody in marketing who knows what they're doing to generate your leads, which is something I've been fine with and now just worked out. Albeit you're not going to be able to get any cheap, and it isn't going to be a 18 to 30k hire. The second thing is discipline. It's just literally having a set structure that you've got to do, and you can't leave before you've done it. And then additionally from there is just taking away the constraint around research. So if it's sourcing and filling jobs, just remove it from you, have somebody else do it, and go from there. That's literally would be three options depending on where you're at. So either spend more time, do more, classic recruitment manager, or second is basically hire your way out of your problem.
You've got two, Matthew? Yeah, both resources, or is one doing any BD?
No, so business development's left to me. Projects are the two, one more in an administrative capacity, if you like, and one actually getting out there and doing the do. Just on that, I think it's the discipline piece is an interesting one, because I guess maybe getting lazy with it is probably part of it at times, or complacent's probably a better word. But when you say sort of sticking around and making sure it's done, do you sort of have set days that you do that, Alex, like sort of weekly, or do you balance it depending on how busy you are with workload?
I mean, there's no real answer that will help you with that, on the basis that if I tell you that I've got a really set structure, you would know the answer to that question already, but like, well, I need to either set a structure or I just need to hold myself accountable. The answer to the question is I don't do a huge amount of business development, so I'm not probably the best person to answer that frame. But if I look at the team in the business, they have set structure, and that's what they have to do. When I was, if you said you got three people, when I was three people, I was the lifeblood of the BD in the most part. I think I had a researcher and a marketing person, and when I was that size, and you have to just do lots and lots of business development, and you have to be structured with it. And if you're not doing it, it's either because you don't want to do it, which is then you've got a basically attitude problem. You're not capable of doing it, which is what you've got a skill problem, or you've got a capacity problem, which is basically you don't physically have the time because you work from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, and you don't have the time to do it, which means you just need to hire. And if you haven't got the revenue to hire, then you need to work out that you're charging too little fees, and increase your margins in order to be able to afford said person if you work in every hour under some.
Solid.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Honest feedback there. This is what it's about, isn't it? It's we've all been through similar challenges, and from what I've seen is, and I can certainly share it with you, is there's a number of different ways of BD, but I suppose the main message is, rather than leaving it, you need to be proactive and do it in advance, and have whatever you can automate, put it in place. Email campaigns, for example, classic, but it's got to be added value. It can't just be, oh, here's another candidate again. No, have you seen this CV? Or here's the candidate of the week. It's, what else can I offer this client for them to go, okay, I might not be looking now, but this person knows their stuff. They know the industry. It might be that you're sharing salary surveys or information on that market to show your specialism, rather than, hey, here's another CV. And just keep it, a number of added value messages.
Yeah. Do you know when you say about structure, being structured with your business development? I suppose I have to be, because it's only me in my business, and I don't have a jobs coming out my ear all yet. So I mean, what would you say are the fundamentals that you need to be doing every week?
You've got to do a mix, because if you're a one-trick pony, it might work with some clients, and other clients they're just not going to respond. So it might be that you're e-spamming, you're e-shotting every day, thousands of messages. It might be that one or two clients come back. You might get a job or two, but then there's a lot of other clients who prefer maybe interaction on the phone. The easiest way to do warm business development is either flipping a candidate into a client, or taking references and flipping the referee. Because you've not gone in there sort of guns blazing saying, give me a job. You've gone in there showing your expertise. So with the candidate, you are talking about opportunities, you're showcasing your knowledge of the market. If they're interested, great. If they're not, still, even if they're interested, flip them to a client anyway. If they're of that level, it's a lot easier than ringing up, cold calling a client saying, how's it going? And they're like, well, who are you? Even if the candidate is going for their first interview, I would still go and take references. And they're much easier to flip. It's a warm call. And also you get the candidate to email who the referee is, copying you in, saying, hey, Steve, Ed's going to take a reference from you on me. And then, great, you've got contact there. And you just follow up going, yeah, when you're free, done.
Yeah.
And it gives you it forces a conversation initially, although it's a reference take, to then flip into how are things going in the team. But to answer your initial question, you've got to do a number of different methods, because not one will always work. We're all different. We're all have different makeup. Some of us will respond to emails. Some prefer a phone call. But after this, I will share methods of BD.
And there's some of us probably that are old enough to remember working in recruitment where it was 5 days a week in the office. You had things like phone stats and pretty hard and fast KPIs. It might be yourself, and if it is, it's reverting back to to those, it's one thing that we've set, we used to set a clear edge, fairly militantly. There's an expectation that you're doing a minimum of X amount of, interviews a week, X amount of e-shots, X amount of, as LinkedIn became a thing, X amount of marketing bit pieces on LinkedIn, X amount of references, trying to think of what else, X amount of time on the phone. I know that seems like a really archaic thing to say, but no, my personal belief, and I don't know whether people will agree with me or not, is that you can't build relationships based on email marketing campaigns alone. You wouldn't sit next to your partner on an evening and text them all night. You'd converse and talk to them, and and that's the sort of analogy that was told to me. And it's just saying, right, what did it used to be at Realwood, Josh? 50 outbound calls a day minimum, 2.5 hours on the phone a day minimum. That if you keep, if you've got those as basic daily and weekly KPIs that you set yourself, that you attach yourself to, look, it doesn't mean that you're going to be an overnight success, but if you put those core principles in, there's guys that have made, done very well, as I understand, by just doing those real basic things right, and work out what they are, and then, like sort of Alex alluded to earlier, be militant and be really disciplined with it. If you're not sticking to it, then that's where your problem probably is.
I would say any excuse to have a conversation, go for it. And let's say, for example, you're interviewing or pre-screening, whatever, we all call it different things, but if you're speaking to a candidate, speak to them about other things. Always get leads, own applications, always find out who the line manager is, always find out how many people in the team, always find out who else they can recommend that they know that's good. They don't have to be looking, but they're good. Who's leaving, who's left, what opportunities are there? And it's about taking the blinkers off to actually get the most out of that call as possible. And every one call will lead to 3, 4, 5 other conversations. But yes, we can't always be a keyboard warrior. There needs to be that communication on the phone. You probably know what you're doing, as in having like a day plan. But if it says cold calling, then I would say that's not really good enough. You need to have it broken down into who do I actually need to go and chase.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh right, this week I need to do 5 interviews. Okay, but who are you going to interview? Who did you want to speak to last week that maybe you didn't get hold of? You need that to-do list, that morning plan of action, and a backup plan. If it's like, well, I want to speak to these 5 contacts today, and none of them pick up the phone, then it's like, well, what's my backup plan? Who should I go and speak to? And have that list of people that you maybe didn't get hold of the week before or the week before that, but it's still ticking away, and you want to make sure that you're having those conversations.
Basically, don't do a huge amount of BD, but the BD I do is slightly different in the sense that I will refer my clients to clients. So my suppliers are my customers, and my customers are suppliers. And about 70% of my clients, I am probably they're in profit out of me, not the other way around. So I have a different style, probably of most recruiters. I support their business growth, and in that gives me a lot of business development. And I appreciate everybody's disciplines are probably, might be more siloed than mine, which is probably an sometimes easier way of doing certainly recruitment. But that's how I find my business development works, and that's helped me go across Europe, and that all started from 6 miles away from referring somebody to a Belgian client from a farmer. So, I mean, it is quite uncanny how you can generate business development, really, not just thinking, I've got to hit the phone, I've got to, my unique sell has got to be something different.
Mhm.
I don't know if people or not in terms of how they go about their PD. I'm certainly not. It's not a breakfast B&I meeting approach, but a bit more complex.
Yeah. Halima, I know that you, with your team, in terms of BD, you have a fairly structured approach, don't you? Do you want to share the sort of things that you get your guys to do?
Yeah, so we have a structured approach in that we break down their KPIs monthly. So that way they can know exactly what they need to do each week. And then we even break it down further with daily. So we have it where they have 40 calls to do each day. They have over 30 target emails where they're reaching out to specific firms. So they pull up a full list. They already know who they're working with and the candidate that they're using to gain some interest. They have their LinkedIn target. So we just break that down daily, and we find that setting a monthly target is pretty hard to do, and just expect every day to be able to stick to that. But if you break it down further, it just makes it easier for the team to be able to follow.
Fab, thank you. Connor, you're cracking the whip with your guys. What sort of, in terms of BD, what's your process?
So obviously we, as I know, obviously I've met with Alex before and yourself, Josh, I know too well. Very metric driven, very cold cally, 100 outreaches a day, 150 outreaches a day, always generating new business. You would do maybe 2 or 3 or 4 placements with a client in a year. And next year it moves on. Obviously, the industry that we work in, construction mainly, is very fast paced and fast moving. So it kind of lends itself towards get out, 2, 3 placements, then move on to the next person, because that's all they're hiring for that year. Always trying to find new business. That type of BD, it lends itself quite easily to like the cold calling and the high outputs, the getting on the phones quite regularly. So day-to-day KPIs and metrics are important for us. I mean, it's a bit of a difficult one when obviously each industry and each market is very different. It's hard to have a one type fits all approach to business development, because each person will have an understanding of what their client base is like, the things that they that resonate well with their client base, and something that works in construction might not work in finance, might not work in data or anything along those lines. So
yeah, I think also with your clients is that they tend to be out and about, they're on the mobiles or they're driving somewhere, and the best way is simply just to pick the phone up rather than sending an email, because they're not necessarily based in an office. James, what do you, in terms of your BD, what's your thinking behind it? How much time are you spending doing it?
A bit of a different situation. So I've been employed for over 12 years in accounting finance, but I'm into month 4 of my own business. So I'm everything. I'm accounts, I'm BD, I'm resourcing. So yeah, my main focus when I set up the business was to really look at candidate relationships and turning those into clients. Like I think it was Johnny mentioned before, having those sort of pieces it's kind of then turned into clients. It's been really, really good for me over the years, and that's something I'm really sort of focusing on.
Orel, my main man, has been very quiet there. I know you do a lot of BD. Do you want to share what you do?
Yeah, actually, I'm a little bit concerned about BD right now, because I had quite a number of clients at the beginning of the year based on referrals, and now the deals are almost finished. Recruiting is done, and there's not much to see on the new client, on the lead side. So, but usually what I'm doing, I have a very small agency with one researcher and myself as a recruiter and also business developer. I use LinkedIn, email, and mobile calls and meetings.
Okay. What version of LinkedIn have you got?
I've just got premium, but I've one thing that I've been to, I've in my industry, there's been quite a few shows and like events, just that I think they're invaluable. Meeting people, cost you less than $1,000, but pays back in dividends, doesn't it? So that's right now the work that I've got on has purely been from going to a renewable energy conference, for example, because that's the industry that I'm in.
It depends what you've got to spend, and also where your market is. I mean, we do a lot, as I said, in North America, and Zoom Info is really useful for that. So it's something we invested into. I think go back to what Josh said though, start with your candidate, start with your network, maybe aim at a slightly senior person, slightly more senior person within your market and network. I know Josh, again, I was trained by Josh. He's a big believer in, use a senior network of candidates and flip them. It works. He's right. But again, mix it. Again, don't know how long you've been doing the job, but there was a day where LinkedIn wasn't quite as proficient as it is now. We didn't have tools like Zoom Info. CRMs were black and green sort of screens that you got with, I'm going back a bit, but we didn't have all the technology. And so, use the warmer calls, network some senior guys. And then, you don't need to spend, you don't need things like Zoom Info. They're nice to have. So-and-so calling from this place, get a mobile number, call them direct. If they ask where you got the mobile number from, just say the switchboard. You don't have to say how you got it. I don't know. There's lots of different ways of doing it. I'm sure there's plenty of guys out, here that do it very, very differently. That's, they'd be real core basic things that we do, Ed, when we're right. We need to make some phone calls. We need to do some new business. These are the things that we'll go ahead and do, and it does work.
I've started using my CRM's Loxo, which I really, really rate, which is really good for getting your contacts, mobile numbers, emails, both personal and work emails. You get credits each month. It's quite cost effective, to be fair, actually. Quite intuitive. But as well as my mobile phone's got lots of contacts in from over the years.
Johnny, you have Loxo, don't you?
We deployed Loxo at the start of the year. It's quite intuitive. I think the database is getting faster in terms of and better in terms of the mobile phone and email data that was in there. Initially, I thought it was quite ropey, but I think it gets better every day. We're deploying a couple of other probably job boards to support that. I was hoping to get away from those, but we're under pressure in terms of candidates, lack of candidates, so trying to improve that data capture. But the fastest way is pretty much always picking up the phone and having a nice conversation with a switchboard, maybe 10 times. But eventually, it's a nice conversation and being put through. And I think COVID, many of us in the room have clearly seen before COVID in recruitment, but I think since COVID, everybody gives out a mobile phone number now, a lot more easier than they ever have done. So it's they're not in the office today. Brilliant. Give me their mobile phone number, and it's we're not waiting for another 24 hours, and that's a big say. But yes, in terms of a CRM, we use Loxo, and we have Full Recruiter, which will scale down once that license come to a renewal time to just probably Sales Navigator. Because I think Loxo is a good one in between.
Yeah.
Why is Loxo so good? Like I'm not familiar with it. What's the difference between that and a normal CRM?
So I think Loxo, or my understanding, the sales pitch when they gave it to me, and Josh for that matter, I think they have a lot of AI capability that trawl the internet for cross-reference people and grab their data. So they'll be pulling it from news articles and anywhere else that we leave our mobile phone numbers. So it's not everybody, maybe 1 in 10, maybe 1 in 20 even mobile phone numbers. And it's very intuitive as a CRM system. We started doing campaigns through there and all sorts, and getting some really good analytical data from them as well.
Finding people. Okay.
I mean, we're just we've been very, very lucky this last 6 months where the business development has been really, really good. Probably my weakness is not saying it's turning down roles, but we're obviously worried what's around the corner with our accountant chancellor. So I, always happy to say yes and work out the problem, but the candidate market where we are is tricky, and we are a lot of pull factors. A lot of candidate clients are saying we want people back in the office 5 days a week or longer hours, and the new dad suddenly doesn't want to work, or suddenly school runs are coming into play, and this, that, and the other, and suddenly the world's got to be far more flexible, but yet they want more money and everything else. So yeah, that's my biggest constraint at the moment is candidates willing to work.
Interesting. Does anybody else find that in your markets, your specialisms? More woke candidates, it sounds like, Johnny, you're struggling with.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because you're right, they want more flexibility, but then they want more money as well. What are other people doing to ensure that they're finding additional types of candidates?
I've got a project on at the moment where I've got a really difficult niche role in quite a small locality as well. So just being a bit more old school and going in sort of a headhunt approach, and because I've sort of exhausted every other method going, and it's a really key client I've done quite a bit of business with so far. But yeah, just making sure that I suppose advising the client what I've done, the numbers of the people I've spoken to, basically to give them a realistic insight of how difficult the role is to fill. Because yeah, there's certain roles, certain areas that are just like absolute rocking horse. Yeah. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I said, doing all I can really to try and get something over the line, really.
Do you think it's when you do take vacancies and you're thinking, this person doesn't really exist, do you just sort of nod your head and go, yeah, I'll go find them? Or do you think the client can be more flexible? Can we persuade them to look at other options?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is more on the practice side of things. It's very candidate driven. So you could ring up 10 practices and get 14 jobs potentially. So the clients know that these sort of roles are really sort of hard to fill. But with this particular situation, we've really stretched the boundaries, and we're looking at like a golden handshake stroke relocation package. We've added sort of 10 grand onto the salary. We've been more flexible with sort of like the hybrid working. So that was only a conversation. We had a meeting on Thursday last week. So I've got a few more options now. But yeah, sometimes say to a client, well, yes, I'm happy to sort of try and find some people for you. But yeah, it's not going to be a 2-month fill. It might be 3 to 6 months before you get somebody on that sort of seat reel, and being sort of consulting with them and advising, yeah, I know what you need, but everyone wants that sort of person. So yeah, it's not too realistic to get somebody quickly.
Yeah. Does anyone else find that, if you do challenge the client, because sometimes also it might be that the candidates exist, but they're not willing to actually pay the going rate. Do you challenge your clients?
I do think it's important to say no.
I knew, I knew, Connor, you were going to have a crack at this, because I've heard you challenge clients.
I think it's important to say no, and because I think you set the precedence for, rather than being a facilitator in the process, as a consultant, let's say, it's so important to set the tone early. If we're speaking with candidates, we're speaking with clients. If you set the boundary straight is that's not realistic in the industry. That's not realistic. That's not realistic. When you're taking a vacancy, it's very easy to be a yes man and yeah, okay, I can find that. Yeah, okay, absolutely, that's what you're looking for. But actually, as a expert in the industry, you've then got to put your 2 pence in, otherwise you're exactly the same as every other recruiter that's ringing them and asking them for the vacancy, and probably going to get exactly the same results as the 40 other people that have spoke to them about the vacancy, because you're just saying, yeah, that's fine, we'll find it, yeah, that's fine. When realistically, that person doesn't exist. Recruiters will go out and then do a quick search, not find the person, then they'll move on to the next one. So the reason the role hasn't been filled is that they've never actually been told that's not realistic. You've got to kind of have the confidence to say no, that's not how things are. That's not how the market's looking right now. Otherwise, you just facilitate rather than consult.
Yeah, I think also a lot of newer to recruitment people struggle with saying no, or struggle to challenge, because there could be that aspect of desperation, or even experienced recruiters I've seen who will take a job on and knowing that they can't fill it. Just all right, boss, I've got a job on. Well, you'll probably have it for a number of months and not get anywhere with it. And the client just goes, oh, well, that was a waste of time.
I think it's important with your consultants as well, if anyone sort of manages consultants, to actually sit them down with their vacancies and proof test them, because again, you are right, when new starters or people that are junior within the industry, when they come into the sort of meetings, they go, oh, I've got 10 vacancies, I've got 5 vacancies, and you actually break them down and they've got 1, if that. That's where a lot of time gets wasted on them working on vacancies or working candidates that aren't actively or actually, solid leads. And having that, time back is majorly important in recruitment. You, especially the first year or two, you waste a lot of time working vacancies, working candidates that will never worth your time in the start off with. So as you become more experienced, it's sort of identifying which candidates and clients are actually worth your time and your effort.
Yeah, so true. So true. Yeah, so okay, well let's open that up to the group then. I mean, I'm sure a few of you, well, probably everyone here actually has dealt with a client being quiet or ghosting or not being responsive, and you got cracking candidates. How far do you push it?
Basically, the way what I'm trying to say is the way that they work and the way that I work or somebody else clashes, and it's not necessarily a synergy. It's more they just want you to do a certain thing while they do the rest. But them doing the rest, they're not doing it on time. Basically, so would you push for more? You don't want to upset the apple cart. You just need to wait for them to get back to you, basically, or would you push for them to get back to you?
How long are they taking to come back to you?
It could be up to about a week, which in my opinion, I think, based on my experience and the other clients I've worked with, that's quite a long time.
Okay.
There's only so much keeping the candidate warm that you can do, but they think, hang on a minute, are they interested in me or not?
Yeah. Okay. So what does any? I mean, I'm sure you've all dealt with a similar situation. How far do you push it then, folks?
I think from my point of view, it's when you take the job on. I know you can't do much about it now, but when you first take the role on, like setting the timescale really with the client, agreeing some sort of detail, when you get feedback by. I'd probably grade the roles as well, like a bit of a traffic light system in terms of like how much control you've got over the role, and make a decision whether you want to work it or not really. And then you can then go back afterwards and say, we agreed to get feedback within 48 hours. It's been 4 days now. If it's been that long, I'd probably maybe get to the point and think, right, do you want to drop this client? If they want to control so much of the process, it can maybe a bit of a red flag for how they're going to be as a employer for the new person going in there, and also is the kind that can actually sort of start really. It sounds a bit of a tricky one.
Who are you dealing with at that business?
I'm dealing with the HR woman,
Yeah.
who
Okay.
is speaking very transparently. I don't think she has to scoop it, what she's doing, because she'd only been in this sector for about 2 months.
Right. Maybe you need to put some pressure on the actual hiring manager because at the end of the day, you're representing the candidates and they need to have feedback and they've got other opportunities, let's say. But like James is saying, it's so important at that very early stage of taking the vacancy, you put in the parameters, you're telling them, this is how I work, this is the timescale I want to work to, can you commit to that? And then you put in their diary phone calls or times when you're going to talk about how the process is going.
Say to the client when you take the briefing, right, 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time, whatever sort of time scale you want to set yourself, I'm going to have a short list of candidates. Give me availability in your diary for that week. And I'm going to book the best 4 or 5 candidates that I've got from the short or from the long listing straight into your diary. Gives you complete control. We saw a massive uptick in fees when people started selling out branches because it ain't a retainer. You're not asking for any financial commitment up front. You're just asking for that trust from the decision maker. But explain the reasons, the benefits to them. You know, we keep candidates engaged and locked into a process because they've got something to aim towards. You know, we're not losing them. We keep momentum, you know, whatever it might be, but explain the benefits to them and just get their availability and then start booking people in. You've got control then. And the benefits to you are that, right, I've got a great person. I know that person's fantastic for the project. Bang, the book's into the diary. The client's happy with that because you're taking it completely off their hands. I'm the expert. You crack on with your day job. I'll get back to you with a short list. They're booked into your diary and we move on. And that really helped pipeline for us. You know, when we started doing that contingent, that might be a way around it. Have a chat with the decision maker and just see if they're comfortable with it.
Fine, no, that's a good idea.
Good. I'm just conscious of time, folks. We've gone past the hour, but I think that's been very useful. Thank you for sharing your challenges. Thanks for chipping in with ideas and thoughts and what you're doing. I'll send out the link to the recording so that with this transcribe of the notes, so at least if you want to go back, it's there.